Hi, I'm Katie Olson. I'm the granddaughter of David Brower. My grandfather said, if we want a future that is by design and not default, it's time for a rebirth of creativity. And I have to say that every one of these winners is absolutely some of the most creative people I've ever met. My grandfather would be astounded by their creativity, their boldness, their initiative. He would be so happy to be here right now. Let me just say that. When we all watched the horrific coverage of Hurricane Katrina, a lot of us wished there was something we could do and unfortunately turned off the TV and went back to our lives. Alex Epstein took this call to action. He headed straight for New Orleans and through his many projects has made a huge difference in New Orleans and all over the United States. So please, let's welcome Alex Epstein to the stage.
Thank you, everybody. It's a real honor to be here in front of you all, especially after such an incredible week here in the Bay. I was here when I was 3 years old and don't remember anything, so I'm considering this my first time really out here, and I've had an awesome time. I'm really not going to go through too much of my story because you saw a lot of that in the film, and I only have a couple minutes to speak, but there are 2 points that I would like to highlight, especially for the young people in the room. That affected me. First, one correction, I didn't see Katrina as a call to action for myself. I was kind of coerced into going to New Orleans by my parents, both of whom signed up as chaperones for a school-organized trip and dragged me along because they knew I'd be getting into trouble without them at home. So they kind of pulled me along. Oh, thank you. So that one goes out to Mom and Dad. Thanks. Going into the trip, I figured, worst case scenario, I'll spend 9 days, get all my community service hours done with real quick, which I did, rebuild a few homes, come home, feel great about myself, and kind of leave it at that. But I was really, we did go down and we did rebuild homes, but what really struck me was working with residents on community organizing efforts. And I spoke with so many people who were so fed up with waiting for the city government to solve their problems for them, and had decided, unfortunately it took Katrina to help them see this, but at that point had decided that it was time for them to take control of their own lives and for them to take control of their own communities and rebuild it in a way that made sense for them. And working with them in that way, on such a personal level, was really inspiring to me, and that's what grabbed me. And I want to make it clear I didn't necessarily hop into that situation with any level of consciousness of my own accord at first. I came home pretty radicalized, and I was hooked. And I knew I needed to go back to New Orleans, and I went back on 2 more school trips along with a lot of other students. And when we came home with a very radicalized attitude and really brought up issues that made a lot of people uncomfortable, talking about racism in this country and how inherent it is in so many systems that we're all a part of. Unfortunately, that's something that a lot of people, particularly people with my background, shy away from discussing, but those of us who saw the reality of New Orleans knew that we couldn't do that. And coming home, that energy really turned off our administration. In an attempt to silence us, they canceled the trips. And they stopped allowing us to go. And I was really devastated by this, and I really did think it was the end at first, but then I realized that I didn't need my school to bring me down to New Orleans, and I didn't need my administration to allow me opportunities to change the world. And so that situation really... Thank you. So in the end, that actually turned out to be the most empowering experience of my life because it forced me to take on that responsibility myself. And so my friends and I, who were really impacted by this, came together and co-founded the New York to New Orleans Coalition, really with a very short-term vision to organize one more trip so we could go to New Orleans one time. The trip was so successful that everyone came back and said, we need to spread this throughout the entire city and the entire country. And since then, NY to NO, even since I graduated from the organization 2 years ago, has continued to operate and has organized 43 trips for over 1,500 students in New York. Thank you. And since then, as I graduated, those of us who co-founded the organization spread ourselves out across the country and entered new communities. And in each of those communities, we've each started similar projects, very locally based. We're facing very different issues wherever we are. Personally, I ended up in Philadelphia, particularly North Philadelphia, to attend Temple University. The second main point I wanted to address was kind of what Dev mentioned, that it was kind of strange for a white boy to be walking around the hood, which it definitely is. And I kind of, from my experience in New Orleans and understanding how integral of a role race played on so many different levels of these issues, I knew that no matter how ambitious I was to change North Philadelphia, it was not my place to do so as an outsider to that community. And, you know, I am a very ambitious person. I think that that's the main reason why I'm here. But it's been a constant struggle for me to balance that with the reality that I'm not from the community that I live in now. I'm a temporary resident, and so I really dedicated my time there to getting to know people of all ages. You saw people from AJ and Angel's age of 5 years old, to Dev, to teenagers, to the elders of the community. And now, after years of really organizing, we have an incredible team working together in North Philadelphia, and who collectively, as the Philadelphia urban creators, are now transforming 2 acres of land into an educational urban farm, which we hope to transform urban blight and provide residents with access to fresh, healthy food, and really a safe space for kids to go to learn about environmental issues, social issues, and how those are so intensely related. And also just work together with other young people who are doing great things. And this week coming out here, at first, reading the description of everything we'd be doing was pretty overwhelming, because I knew I'd be coming here to work with so many awesome people, young people, some significantly younger than me, even doing things on a much larger scale than I am. And you'll hear from all of them later, but what I realized over the course of the week is that none of us are striving to do more than what makes sense for us. None of us are seeking to change the world. We're simply changing the world wherever we are in a way that makes sense in the communities that we're a part of. Now, some of us define community in a very different way. For me, it's Philadelphia. For some of us, for Junior, for Tania, for Victor, they embody the communities that they've grown up in and have dedicated themselves to combating the issues that they've faced since they were kids. For our other 3 members, they're not necessarily working on a local level, geographically speaking, but they've reached out to their respective communities of surfers and Girl Scouts. And each of us working on that level in our community, we may only be affecting change on what seems like a small level, block by block, wave by wave, mountain by mountain, but collectively, what we're doing is building a movement. And a movement is something that's intangible. It's something you can't see, it's something you can't define, it's something you can't label. It just is. And this week has brought us together and given us opportunities to build these bonds and build these relationships that you can't see, but we see it now. And I hope that if you all, especially, again, the young people in this room, take anything away tonight, it's that you can begin to understand that you can see things without your eyes sometimes. And you can build things and, step up against adversity. No matter who's telling you you can't do something, you can. And if you just go home, don't try and change the whole world. Just try and change your block, or change your neighborhood, or change the club or the sport or the extracurricular activity or group that you're in. And if you work with everybody around you and you connect to us, I guarantee you that together we are going to change this world. It's the only way that that's ever going to happen. So to conclude, I just wanted to thank the Earth Island Institute for offering this incredible opportunity to me, especially Ruth and Anisha for giving me a chance to have one of the best weeks of my life. To my friends and family at home, to my best, longest time friend Ishmael, who's here in the audience. What up, Ish? Who's known me since before I cared about anything except basketball and Dragon Ball Z. And to everyone I've worked with, from New York to New Orleans to Philly to now the Bay, and all of the other people in all of the amazing places doing all the great things that we're doing here this week. Thank you very much.